Oh, boy.
What happened?
We've seen some pretty good snafus, but this one, there was a certain splendor to this one. One of the night nurses up per diem thought Schaefer was a patient and plugged an IV into him. He was a diabetic, you know.
What do you mean she plugged an IV into him?
It's a really screwed up story, Doctor. You see, what happened was we had an old man in that bed who died last night, so the bed was available. You know Schaefer, he's Sammy Stud.
So he talked a nurse into zapping him on the bed?
One of the girls from hematology he's been running around with.
God, it's a Roman farce.
I thought I heard you out here, Doctor.
Nancy? I suggest you do that right now.
Dr. Barker, I'm so terribly sorry.
Now, as I understand it, one of the nurses inadvertently administered an IV to Schaefer here. How the hell could that happen?
Listen, I think we ought to straighten this out somewhere else.
Yes, very good idea. Oh, God, what a mess. Well, these things happen, of course.
I suppose I'd better call the medical examiner.
I still don't understand what happened.
Well, it took us about an hour to get it sorted out. It seems a patient named Guernsey died last night in 806, but that information wasn't given to the night nurses. These things happen. At any rate, according to the Cardex, the patient Guernsey was down for 25 milligrams of Spayrine at Q6H, and Mrs. Reardon sent Nurse Perez to give him his 12 o'clock shot. In the meantime, it seems Dr. Schaefer usurped that particular bed for his own purposes. Dr. Brubaker suggests it was for a love tryst, and some weight is given that hypothesis by the fact that Dr. Schaefer was naked.
I get the drift, Mrs. Christie. In other words, Nurse Perez went in and sedated Dr. Schaefer, thinking he was the patient Guernsey. My God, what I don't understand.
May I finish, please, Doctor? After Perez gave him his shot, she noticed the IV was pinched off on the bed. So she reported this back to Mrs. Reardon, who then assigned Nurse Rivers to restart the IV. Now, Rivers was afloat. She didn't even know the staff people on the floor. Nobody knew what the patient Guernsey looked like anyway, since he'd only been admitted that morning.
So she plugged an IV.
Yes.
How much?
A liter.
5% glucose solution won't kill anybody. Wasn't dehydrated, was he? Did he have any other ancillary conditions? Didn't anybody bother to go in and check on him during the night, even under the impression that he was merely a patient? Was he hyperosmolar? Did he have a bad heart? He must have had some sort of thrombosis. I want the post done here, Mr. Hitchcock. And you and I had better have a little chat, Mrs. Christie, about your excessive use of float nurses.
I've got nearly 1,000 nurses in this
And every
hospital.
time one of them has her period, she disappears for 3 days. My doctors complain regularly they can't find the same nurse on the same floor 2 days in a row. Now, what in hell am I going to tell this boy Schaefer's parents? That a substitute nurse assassinated him because she couldn't tell the doctors from the patients on the floor? My God! The incompetence here is absolutely radiant. I mean, 2 separate nurses walk into a room and stick needles in a man, and one of those is a number 18 gel coat, tourniquet the poor son of a bitch, anchor the poor son of a bitch's arm with adhesive tape, and it's the wrong poor son of a bitch. My God, I mean, where do you train your nurses, Mrs. Christie? Dachau? All right. Wrap him up and get him down to pathology, and I'm especially interested in his blood sugar. A liter of glucose never killed anybody. Your ladies must have done something else to him.
Will there be anything else, Doctor?
No.
Before you call the family doctor, I think you should speak to Mr. Mead about this. We'd like naturally to avoid litigation.